the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, two quick announcements this evening. We do have all board members present on the Zoom call this evening, so all board members are here. The second announcement, the board did meet an executive session for approximately 30 minutes this evening prior to this evening's board meeting to discuss two personnel matters, a revised personnel report, and then also a legal matter. I will now turn it over to Dr. Polinchak for the recognition of the school board.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fetzer. At this time, we want to take a moment and certainly thank the school board directors for all of their service to the school district and to the community. This is an unpaid position, and it's a lot more than just coming to or zooming into the 2 meetings we have each week. The school directors certainly communicate with parents and other members of the community, hear their concerns, hear their praise for the district, and they work with administration to try and make sure that this is the best learning experience that the students can have during their tenure in the Lewisburg area school district. This year, we purchased library books to be dedicated in your honor and placed in each of the libraries. Unfortunately, we're not able to show them to you, so when we can be in person again, we will let you see which books you now have your name attached to for our children to enjoy, and then they will be placed in the library. So on behalf of the administration, the staff, and the students, thank you for your service.
Thank you very much, Jen. And on behalf of the board, I'm sure others will comment later in the meeting, but on behalf of the board, I would just say thank you for that recognition, and also for the books that's happened in the past. I know board members have really appreciated that, and it's meant a lot to us. So thank you. That's always exciting to see those books and get to. With that, I will move on to comments to the board. I'll start out. John, do we have any citizens' comments to the board on agenda items?
We do not currently have any comments to the board on agenda items, but if anybody is out there is interested, please visit our website at www.lasd.us and click on the survey link. You can enter in your name, your address, and the comments that will be read later on in the board meeting. Back to you, Mr. Fetzer.
All right, thanks, John. We'll move on to the board representatives' comments. Ms. Reber, you're first on my screen, so I'll start with you.
Alrighty, and I just have to say that if Mr. Fairchild is ever looking for like that backup career, he would make an excellent like game show host or announcer. He like just has that intonation and everything down pat. So just taking a look at what's going on at the high school right now, we are very rapidly coming upon the close of our first semester. That will be on February 8th. I'm actually just getting ready to finish and sending out the parent notification, letting them know of that. That's a little bit of a change from when it was originally going to be, and that is because of Keystone testings, which is another area that we are working on right now. Our Keystone testing for our 10th graders who are currently enrolled in a Keystone course will take place next week. Now you might remember, I believe it was last year or else the year before, every time gets a little blurry here and fuzzy, where we took out the passing of the Keystone exams as part of our local graduation requirements. So, but they are still required to take them. They have, like for instance, last year did the federal waiver, but there hasn't been a federal waiver or anything for that. So our students are required to take them at this time. And it is one, although it is not required for graduation, it is one of the pathways that students can show that they have reached those proficiencies and knowledge needed for graduation. So again, it's not required in our local policies that they need a passing score to be able to graduate, but it is still part of that overall pathway, and there is that accountability piece from the state. And again, we have not gotten a waiver, because that would have to be at the federal level that would happen. So we are getting ready for Keystones next week. We did all the mandatory trainings and things with the staff. We also are making arrangements for those students who are returning from remote education, for those students, if they're going to be in person second semester on taking the test, or if they're not coming back, we'll be doing theirs the following week. We have a great response in terms of the number of students who are returning. I cannot actually pinpoint the exact number, because that varies a little bit each day. But I would say that we're probably at least at 25 students you know, who are returning to in-school. Just learned of some more today. And so we're excited to have those students back, and hope to make that transition go as smoothly as possible. We all will be sending out some information, because they didn't get that beginning of the year information on all of our procedures and things like that, especially for our freshmen, who this is a brand new building, and then to have to start mid-year. We want to take away some of that anxiety and help to ease that transition and make it a very smooth second semester with those transitions for them. So lots of things going on right now. Getting ready to send you know, the next batch will soon be coming up of when students will apply for the next round of college admissions. So just lots and lots happening. It's a very busy time of the year at the high school. And I will turn it over to Mr. Wetzel.
Thank you, Ms. Reber. As Paula said, just when she finished up there with college admissions and the next round of applications and everything, we did recently find out that one of our seniors, Chen Gu, is a finalist for the Presidential Scholar Award, which is just a phenomenal accomplishment for him, and just one of the many accomplishments of so many of our seniors that, even though it's just January, that stuff starts to roll out here pretty quickly. So it's awesome to be able to celebrate that with him and just show our appreciation for all of his hard work that he's put in. And we also are continuing with our music festival season. It's continuing this coming up Friday. Tomorrow is the PMEA District Chorus Festival. So they've already had the band festival. They are now doing the chorus festival, again via Zoom. And the directors and the students have just absolutely rolled right with it. They've had keynote speakers and just different presentations throughout the festival. I know the band festival was very well received by both Mr. Schwanger and the students that attended. And it also gives the students the opportunity to audition and try to advance to the next round. So they have made some modifications to that process. But just for our kids to have that opportunity, because it is a passion of theirs, and to have the chance to just connect with others around the region and to be able to showcase their skills is awesome. So we're very happy that they have that opportunity. And I will pass it on to Mr. Drozen.
Thank you, Mr. Wetzel. At the middle school, we're doing some of the similar things to the high school on our scale. The Keystone exams, we give one. It's for algebra, and we'll be giving that not next week, but the week after. And so we'll have, we've invited our eSchool students to come in. They'll test in their own room, and the algebra kids will be in their regular classrooms for that. So it's a smaller scale, but it's still important. And the training that the teachers have to go through and the counselors as well is appreciated. We had finished up a service learning project yesterday where kids at all three grade levels made several hundred handmade Valentines. Not each kid, but overall, several hundred handmade Valentines to be delivered this weekend to senior living facilities in Lewisburg. And we're grateful for the opportunity to do that. But kids really embracing that opportunity to reach out to members of the community that they don't even know. And the last thing I wanted to say is kind of a plug for a year-long effort, and that's through our learning system, Canvas. We had a day this week where we just had to go remote on a very short notice, and it really was kind of a seamless effort that teachers embraced the notice they're doing this. They remoted with their students. They Zoomed with their students from home. They were well prepared for that. The kids responded well. And it just, if you would have thought that we could have done this in September or October on such short notice, we would have been laughed at. It just would not have worked well. It worked great the other day when we had to do that. And it's the culmination of a lot of effort on the part of the teachers and adaptations on the parts of the families. And so I just wanted to make comment of that. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, George. Just a few things from Lintown. First of all, if you, Paula had mentioned kids coming back, and we're excited, probably I'd say between 8 and 12 students returning as we kick off the next marking period here on February 4th. And several of those moving into Elena Forsman's classroom in 4th grade. But it's just exciting every time we get another email about another student who's coming back from cyber school or from e-school and coming back into the building. So we're excited about that. If you haven't looked at our Facebook page lately, take a look at the last post. I put some pictures up from Mr. Durr's room. He did a writing project from Martin Luther King Day, and the kids did writing projects on I Have a Dream. And it was just very interesting to take a look at what they created and their very keen awareness of current events. There were many different papers written, and including topics like social justice, the events at the Capitol building, the inauguration, the end of the pandemic. They were just very well written, very aware of current circumstances, and it was neat to see the kids' hearts in wanting to help be a part of a better world. So those were neat to take a look at if you get a chance. Another cultural thing that happens at Lintown every year, has happened for as long as I can remember working there, is the PSA assembly that the PSA sponsored. It's called Kit's Caboodle, and it's a one-woman show. She typically comes in and does a presentation on the American Revolution for 5th grade and indentured servitude for 4th. And we just assumed, like many things this year, that was going to have to be canceled. But I've been in communication with her, and we figured out she's actually able to offer several of her shows virtually. And not only that, but when she does the shows in person, she includes teachers and students in her shows, giving them different props and hats and bonnets and things that they put on, and dance around maypoles and do all kinds of neat things. She actually reached out, and we were able to give scripts to the 4th grade and 5th grade teachers, and they were able to record themselves and text those clips to Kitty, the lady that runs the show, and she's editing those into the show, and then is going to present both shows. The 4th grade show wasn't available this year, so we chose a show on women's rights. So 4th is going to be viewing women's rights, and 5th is going to have the American Revolution again. But the kids are going to be able to watch the entire show and see their own teachers edited into the show, which should be a real joy for them. So we were excited to be able to pull that off. Probably do the 5th grade show in February and the 4th grade show sometime in March. And then George talked about Valentine's Day, and just again want to point out the desire that this teaching staff has to support the kids and try to give them any and every opportunity for a sense of normalcy and the wonderful things that come along with school on a normal basis. And Valentine's Day is coming up, and I had kind of made the assumption, well, we probably shouldn't do Valentine's, hands those out. There's, too much with the pandemic. And the teachers kind of pushed back and said, you know, we got this idea from a teacher over at Kelly Elementary for the kids to bring in their Valentines and just bring them in early, and then we can let them kind of quarantine and make sure they're safe before they're distributed. So kind of across the building, all the teachers wanted to see that happen. And it was just nice, once again, to be reminded of how much they care about all the little details that matter for kids in school. Teaching and learning is a given, but they want them so badly to have a part of the culture that is normally associated with a school year. So just kudos again to our staff. They're really great people. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Rule.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Yes, Kelly Elementary, if we don't have Valentine's, it's not going to be right. So we had to come up with a creative way to make that happen. Dr. Fairchild, as I look at Zoom meetings, I'm thinking hosting Hollywood Squares. You're already a little, you know, we look at the little boxes in the faces. For those of you that remember that old show, you're already hosting it. Some great things going on at Kelly. First of all, we're working with Bucknell University's athletic department to have some guest readers for Black History Month. In the past, athletes have come in and read to our kindergartners in the morning. They've come as part of our Read Across America Week. And you know, this year with the pandemic, it's difficult for the athletes to be able to come into school and do those kinds of things. So Bucknell had reached out to us about reading to the kids virtually through Zoom. So I'm working with my librarian to identify some books. I thought it'd be great if we use some books from our own library, as our librarian has a display, you know, throughout the month. So kids might hear the book read to them and then be able to go find it in the library and check it out from their own school. So we're working with them to set up a schedule for each of our grade levels to participate in that. So we're looking forward to that. I got a nice email from Amy Matakaitis, our first grade e-school teacher. She had shared that she had reached out to the specials teachers because our kids that are in e-school are not participating in specials classes, and you know, the kids really enjoy the specials teachers and they miss seeing them. So she reached out to the specials team, and each of the specials teachers had jumped into a Zoom meeting with her kids at some point in time to do a fun activity or just to interact with them a little bit. Our new art teacher, Mrs. Jarrett's going to introduce herself and do something fun with them. But I just wanted to share that as, you know, a great way that, you know, even though even though the e-school students are not actually coming into the building on a daily basis, we're trying to stay connected with them and have our teachers remain connected with them. And I think the last thing that I want to share is just give some recognition to Hannah, Erie, and Frake, our third grade, one of our third grade teachers. Hannah has been, you know, very involved with Epic, which is an online digital library for kids. And you know, it's really nice because it's got a broad range of books, and the kids can search by topic and genre and interest area to find books that they're intrigued with. And Hannah applied to be a teacher ambassador in their teacher ambassador program, and was selected one of 250 teachers in the world to be an ambassador for Epic. So congratulations to Hannah. She will be helping to promote that to teachers all over and continue to use that with her students. So we're very thankful for her. I will turn it back over to Mr. Fetzer.
Thanks again for all of those reports and updates. I know, again, I'll speak for the board. It's always just nice to hear those things going on. And I'm still amazed every meeting hearing about all of the opportunities that could have been missed opportunities, but yet we're creating new ways and adapting that those students can still experience those opportunities, maybe a little bit differently than other years, but it's awesome to hear that all of those things are still going on, from Valentine's to band concerts to, you know, across the whole spectrum. There's so many awesome things going on. So thank you again for those updates. We'll move on to the select presentations. Dr. Fairchild, I'll turn it over to you for the budget 2021-22 update.
Sure thing. Thank you, Mr. Fetzer. Yes, so just a quick update for everybody where we are in processing our preliminary budget here for 21-22. You recall the original budget we presented last November, showing a deficit of approximately $1.4 million. Well, we've been plugging and chugging and trying to make some progress. We do have a little bit of progress. Good news to report. We had a slight uptick in our assessed values. PSERS came in. Their rate was slightly lower. It went from 34.95% down to 34.94%. So woohoo, savings. None of our teachers have requested any sabbaticals. We had one retirement at the last board meeting. This is not inclusive of the current personnel report, so we will see a slight tweak after this. One of the other things that kind of came at us is presently several of our staff previously were on their spouse's health insurance through Bucknell University. Well, this year Bucknell University has implemented a spousal exclusion, something that we've done a few years ago. So they've implemented a spousal exclusion, and our staff members have migrated back to our health insurance here, some of them bringing their dependents with them. So we've seen an uptick in some of those staff members taking personnel. So unfortunately, our deficit still remains at about 1.4 million. We've seen a slight improvement, but that's where we currently are at. So the next steps. We'll be advertising tomorrow the intent to adopt the preliminary 21-22 budget at our February 11th board meeting. So we'll be asking you board members to vote on the proposed preliminary budget, vote on advertising and application for referendum exceptions like we do every year, and also voting on the tax collector compensation for the 22 to 25 term. Throughout the months of March, April, and May, we'll continue to give you budget updates. In April, we're hoping to finalize our insurance rates. We are going out to bid this year as our contract with Capital Blue Cross is up. We are cautiously optimistic as our run rate has been very good this year so far, knock on wood. The April 22nd board meeting will see the vote on the proposed final budget, so that board meeting is at least 30 days prior to the adoption of the final budget, which we voted on at our June 10th board meeting. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions. I realize I'm not giving you much new, but if there are any, I would be happy to entertain them.
Hey, John, just for the benefit of anybody playing along at home, can you give a little information about why the federal revenues went down, or why they're estimated to go down so much? It's significant, right?
Pretty much the federal revenues, we'll go back here. There we go. Federal revenues are dropping. 20% looks like a lot, but as you can see, it's about $100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. The reason is that previously we were using up our access funds, and we've been doing, several years ago, we had a large pile of access money that we hadn't really been using. So we made an effort. We hired some new positions that have been paid for with those access funds. And so now we've been using them up, and now there's not as much access money to go around. So we want to reflect that in a slight decrease in the budget. So that's the source of that change. Thank you, Dr. Jablonski. Okay.
Board, any other questions?
Over to you. Yeah.
All right. We'll move on to the next presentation, the enrollment and staffing projection presentation. Dr. Polonchak.
So I'll ask Ms. Moser to go ahead and present this, and she'll give some of the specific information, so she knows exactly where all the bodies are within the district and has known. The caveat for us, of course, this year has to be that our enrollment is going to be a little bit off because of families that have elected to homeschool because of the pandemic, although some of those have been returning, and families that have gone to cyber charter schools that have an intention of returning back to our schools once they feel that it is safe for their children to do so, hopefully with the beginning of next year. So, you know, it's prudent to keep staffing levels level because we know these students will likely be coming back to us, but we will continue to monitor. And with any positions, whether it be resignations or retirements or anything that may happen, we always look for that opportunity to gain some efficiencies with our staffing. So, Kathy? You're muted, Kathy.
That. John, if you'll help me move the slides through. This is us, one of 4 school districts within Union County. Every year we take this time and opportunity to look at our enrollment. We take the time and opportunity to look across our own staffing, as well as try to project what we anticipate our student enrollment to be. We'll take you down through some of these. Board members, you have the full set, of course, of slides and can continue to review them. These are the numbers straight as they are, the actual numbers, if you will, showing our years across the top, showing the number of students in school this year, as Dr. Polanchak already referenced, and our principals as well. This was at one moment when we were prepping this information. This was our enrollment in e-school. It drops, it rises, it drops, it rises. Currently, as we're at the end of a marking period, we're welcoming students back. So that 334 is a number that had its moment, and it is now changing as well. We are responsible for some students that are placed out of district for various reasons and special programming, and you can see that as well. Notice, as we've all been well aware of, the uptick in the use of cyber charter school this year, and even a modest increase in families taking the option for private and parochial schools. Another large bump with a pandemic are families that are choosing to fashion a homeschooling experience for their students. And even that 116 reflects some families that are blending some homeschool courses, some who may be even having their students participate in our musical ensembles. And so we've got a lot of variety even in the student population that is comprised of that number of 116. The total number of 2205, where we stand relative to any registrations and any departures that, again, as a school year goes, certainly occur at any given time. So reflecting to the bottom right corner, the idea that typically we might say 90 to 91% of all the children within the school district lines choose to attend the Lewisburg area school district. You see a variation in that this year. Again, all related to our current pandemic situation. John, if you'll move to 4. Thank you. These specific names of the cyber schools and the enrollments that you can see, and probably more pertinent following on the heels of a budget presentation, would be to take a look at the budget cost. And so you can see those 76 students and the tuition fee that is deducted from our subsidy, and what it is, if you will, that the cost is for a regular ed student as well as a special education student. So that's important information as we continue to plan for the school organization. Homeschooling, as we mentioned, it's not uncommon for us to have the numbers that you see over the run of years listed here on this particular chart. And again, I've already referenced that it's a school year that sees an increase in families utilizing homeschooling. The information on this slide, if you were not aware of how many private and parochial schools are within access for our residents' families and their children, here's the listing of where we have had students enrolled 2014-15 through present year. I like that we were able to also point out and indicate for everybody's general awareness, this does not necessarily mean that our buses are transporting to all of these places, but you will note that some of the ones and the ones that bear the larger numbers of student enrollment, we not only see families make this choice of educational programming for their children, we do transport. We are obligated to transport to these schools as well. Thank you. Move on, John, please. Thank you. Our numbers truly represent our ability to project, and then the actuals of our student enrollment. And again, short of just taking this year as the aberrational year that it is, you would see that we run pretty much with what we think we're going to have. We do indeed have in terms of our student enrollments. Go ahead, please. Again, taking that same information and running it through the columns of the chart that you see. Go on, please. Many of you who have served on the board over a number of years may well remember, as Dr. Duraco would give this presentation, and then Dr. Skauka after him, utilizing a statistical piece called the cohort survival formula and a 5-year average of that. That's what allows us to get to the numbers that are in the far right column in red. Projected from the number of live births in a particular year, you can project out how many students would continue to therefore enroll at age of entry in the district and remain in the district. It is just that. It is a statistical projection. Dr. Duraco always found it to be fairly accurate, and it's kind of that statistical piece that we certainly take a look at and utilize a bit in our planning and thinking for the school district. Presenting the information across the bar graph that you see, the line graph, we remain pretty steady, pretty consistent. The lines, as you can see in the varying colors, and again, what we're projecting even out to next school year, 2021-22, the student population at each school building. The information that again may be interesting to look at and certainly to examine in all of our planning efforts is to take a look at class sizes. The chart to the bottom half of this particular page, and again, K through 8, where we have 7 sections in elementary grades and 6 sections of each grade in our middle school. Simply what those average classroom size student populations are. The next several slides begin to break down the components of the various working groups within our school organization. You can see the administrative staff by position, and the number 1 is the common number through all the columns that you can see. Rather lean administratively. Go ahead, please. And additional positions to the left, and the numbers bear out psychologists, nurse, speech therapists, ELL teachers. We updated this to reflect that for a long time, we always said we had 1 ELL program specialist reflecting our full-time ESL program specialist at the elementary level, but we do have staff that serve in that capacity in both our middle school and high school for a total of 3. And the notation with the asterisk, they are professional staff members who also teach in a content area and serve our ELL students. And so we simply updated this slide for that reason. We're going to take it down through buildings. And again, the numbers are there for you to see. The Kelly staff, the Lintown intermediate staff serving grades 4 and 5, and the Icorn middle school staff. Again, just quickly, even as you would read across the bottom line, we have stayed very steady in our staffing. And finally, John, the high school staff slide as well. You work here across both middle school and high school. In recent years past, we've had split positions. We've had some that are 1+ positions. Here's one, for example, relative to high school art. We have a full-time art teacher, and we have the individual who shares 0.65 time in our high school. Our music ensembles take our music staff across several buildings. So you see the decimal portions of split opportunity to serve students in more than one building. But again, very steady, very consistent numbers. If you'll go on, John. And then of course, simply the totals and the tallies, if you will, but sometimes it's good to be able to grab hold of the numbers in the far column to appreciate what the total professional staff is in the district. We do sign contracts to bring other opportunities to our students. We value the work of our social workers. We have the hearing interpreter services and an additional speech pathologist working with us, a contract for some additional school psychology services for the testing and evaluation of our students. And so that's reflected here on this slide. The other portion of a working day in a school organization is to also appreciate our support staff, the secretaries and aides, the cafeteria staff, and custodians. So again, for you, it's a breakdown by buildings, and you can see Kelly's support staff and the Lintown building's support staff, and middle school, as you see. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out both in cafeteria and particularly in the custodial staff, it is not surprising to you as board members, but again, we certainly are well aware that we have operated in our cafeterias and we've operated in our custodial staff with less than the number of positions that we have usually had, and the challenges that continue for us to find ourselves employees and be able to be at full staff in those areas. So some totals again across the district to appreciate in this slide. And I'll turn it back to you, Dr. Polinchak. I know your introductory comments were that staffing remains consistent and at the levels they have been. If there is anything else, Dr. Polinchak, that you wanted to share.
No, thank you, Ms. Moser. It's very comprehensive, certainly. You know, we're able to see where all those positions are. And as always, we're staffing to meet the students' needs and doing so as efficiently as possible.
And Mr. Fetzer, unless there are questions, or Dr. Jablonski, go ahead.
Sure. Again, for anybody who's kind of watching at home, I know sometimes these are hard meetings to watch because you don't have maybe all the information. But for example, when we are low on custodians, John, do we typically contract with a cleaning service? This is a pandemic year, so I hope people would know that we are still maintaining extremely clean buildings.
Absolutely. We do contract with a cleaning service for some substitute custodians. And a lot of our custodians work overtime. They stick around, they do the extra work, they make sure that the cleaning and sanitizing is done to make sure that our students and teachers have the best environment.
I don't have a question so much as a comment. The conjunction of the budget presentation and the staffing presentation prompts me to raise the issue of the fact that a lot of other districts have taken a firm position in favor of reforming the funding formula regarding the way that we pay for cyber charters. And I would hope that would be something that we could take up. Probably a lot of us saw the letter to the editor and the daily item from the Shamokin area board of directors. And so I just want to put that out on the table that I think, you know, we're really suffering this year from the way that formula exists. And I know there's a lot of movement in Harrisburg to try to do something about it. And I would hope that we could weigh in on that.
Kathy, one quick question. Going back over the past 5 years, it looks like our staffing has increased, but going back longer to 10 to 15 years prior to the 08-09 budget crisis where most districts were facing some really difficult times. You probably have the most knowledge of those times. What were the numbers, do you know off the top of your head? I mean, are we getting back to slowly kind of building back staff that we had kind of eliminated through some, retirements and things that we did not replace those positions? Are we, I mean, I think we're getting close to the point where we are at where we were before that time. Is that correct?
I would tell you that is a good piece to share, Mr. Fetzer, absolutely. Case in point, we had made a reduction in the number of school counselors in the middle school during the year you referenced, and several years ago, 3 years ago, we were able to put that second counselor back in that position that we know is an important service in the middle school. We've been able to, again, provide some pieces like gifted education services across the buildings with individuals to serve in those capacities, as opposed to adding that responsibility to classroom teachers. So yes, to your general point, we have certainly brought ourselves back in terms of the employment. I still will maintain, as Dr. Polinchak noticed, even with looking at it for the first time, we work very hard to make sure students have what they need and that we're filling as many of their opportunities for learning as we can with great teachers. And we're very aware of how best we can do that with the resources and the staff that we have. But we also always benefit from board support if we bring a need forward and can work with the board to make that happen. We've always appreciated that support as well.
Thank you. Any other questions, board? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to our board action section of tonight's meeting. The first item is the approval of the Lintown natural gas contract. We've seen this before, presented to us previously. Dr. Fairchild, anything else to add to that this evening?
Nope, just last board meeting, we approved another gas contract and electricity contract. And at that time, the natural gas rates for the service area for Lintown were not very favorable, but a couple weeks ago, we had that kind of warm spell that came through here, and gas prices actually came down about 50 cents per MMBB. So we were able to lock in a lower rate than what we had seen a few weeks before. So we're able to lock it in here for a 4-year period. So I would ask that you approve this contract this evening.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Moved by Dr. Zimmerman, seconded by Dr. Jablonski. Any discussion? Hearing.
Jordan, you cut out.
Can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So moved by Dr. Zimmerman, seconded by Dr. Jablonski. Any discussion? Hearing none. Paula, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Stanton,
Yes.
Dr. Unzicker-Fisero,
Yes.
Dr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mrs. Browse,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski,
Yes.
Mr. Rowe.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, our next item is the 2021-22 Suntech operating budget. Mrs. Browse or Dr. Polinchak, anybody? And again, I know we've seen this before, but anything else to add this
I
evening?
would just point out that our district shares based on our number of students, proportion of students that attend Suntech. We are anticipating a decrease of 10% of the students to attend next year. The portion that we are approving is for $746,000. It's on page 697.86. We pay the smallest share of all the partnering school districts.
So moved.
Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Dr. Jablonski. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Zimmerman. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please, Paula.
Dr. Unzicker-Fisero,
Yes.
Dr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mrs. Browse,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski,
Yes.
Mr. Rowe,
Yes.
Ms. Stanton.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, we'll move on to the board action under new business. The first item is the revised 2020-21 district calendar. Mrs. Moser or Dr. Palanchak, I'll turn it over to you.
I can take that, Kathy. We discovered, it was brought to our attention by LAEA, that the calendar that was approved for the 2020-21 school year would include 189 teaching days or work days for our teachers. By contract, they can only have 188. We looked at a lot of different options that we could do. And while there may be some financial impact to this we believe is the best option to be able to resolve this, and that is by ending the school year one day later. It is a half day, would continue to be a half day for students, but instead of the last day being the 17th, it would be the 16th.
Jen, just a clarification. I know it's just something you said one day later, one day earlier.
Earlier, I apologize.
No, that's why I just wanted to clarify.
Oh, no, not
I
that.
know what you meant, but I just wanted to clarify for everyone listening. So one day earlier. Is there a motion to approve the revised district calendar as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Browse. I didn't catch the other one.
Marianne.
Thanks. Seconded by Ms. Stanton. Any discussion? I will do a voice, a roll call vote on this as well, please, Paula.
Dr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Browse?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Dr. Unzinger-Fisera?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, our next item is the resolution for e-signature and e-grants. Dr. Fairchild?
Yes, we would ask that you approve this resolution so that we can send it in and Dr. Palanchak can be our signatory superintendent on the PDE e-grant system.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Jablonski, seconded by Dr. Zimmerman. Any discussion? I can do this by voice vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is the elementary yearbook advisors stipend. Dr. Palanchak?
Oh, you're muted.
I was looking at the actual agenda item on the screen and not that I was muted. Typically, our PSA has helped with the development of the yearbook for the elementary schools. They are looking to move to have a virtual yearbook, but we still have parents that would want the hardback yearbook. And it's not as complex as a high school or a middle school yearbook, but we would look to have a stipend to be able to have a staff member go ahead and put that together. Most importantly, we want to make sure the students' names and pictures are matching up, and just facilitate the purchase and fund collection for those yearbooks that would be purchased. So the stipend is proportional from the difference between the high school stipend, which is the most, say, complex book that we have, then to the middle school, and then reducing that.
Do we make any revenue from yearbook? I'm sorry. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Jablonski, seconded by Mrs. Browse. Sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, I was say, do we make any revenue on yearbook sales?
No, we do not. It's completely neutral. Parents pay the bill and it goes to the yearbook company. There's no revenue.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote, please, Paula.
Mrs. Browse?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer?
Yes.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Mrs. Stanton,
Yes.
Dr. Unsicker Fisera,
Yes.
Dr. Zimmerman.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, and then the next item, policies for first reading. Board, we have them in front of us. Anybody on the policy committee, anything else to add other than just the committees, I'm sorry, the policies being presented to us? Hearing
Move to
none.
approve.
All right, we have a motion by Dr. Jablonski. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Browse. Any discussion?
There is one policy
all
you'll notice. Oh, there's one policy you'll notice that is missing the check marks in the boxes, but it's select all. Like a couple of, usually they're actually selected. I just can't, I was looking at it earlier. I just don't remember which one. I should have written it down. Nobody recalls.
Thanks, Aaron.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Any other discussion? All right, I can do this by voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is new positions. I would move to table this topic. We do have the revised personnel report in the consent agenda that will be coming up later in the agenda this evening due to some revisions to the personnel report and accepting some resignations and retirements. I would move to table this topic to send it back to the administration just to tweak some things based off of some of the revisions to the personnel report. So I would move to table that item. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, seconded by Ms. Stanton. Any discussion? All right, I can do this by voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries and we will table that item. Similarly, the next item, the organizational chart, again, same premise. Due to some revisions and some updates, I would also make a motion to table this topic as well to send back to the administration to take another look at based off of some of the updates. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Zimmerman. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. So we will table those two last items that had gone on the agenda, but again, due to some things that came in after the board agenda had been posted, we will table those. The next section, the board information under new business, the master facilities plan. Just wanted to have an opportunity. There's been some discussion going on. Maybe 2 months ago, we had created the ad hoc HVAC committee to take a look at some of those projects. Just wanted to kind of maybe give Dr. Polinchak a chance to provide a couple updates, but just give the board a chance to have a discussion as to where we want to go as a district and to be able to give the administration some direction. So Dr. Polinchak, I'll turn it over to you for a brief update.
So our ad hoc committee met. We have 2 proposals from 2 vendors for an HVAC modernization project in the 3 schools and along with some upgrades with the high school. And one of the concerns that certainly we have is that we looked for ESCO funding so that the energy savings that we would gain would be able to pay for the bond that we would have to take in order to pay for the project. Unfortunately, neither of the proposals would be able to be fully funded by the energy savings, so there would need to be some district contribution. That led to some discussion about maybe just remedying the most needy building first and doing this in a phased plan, and then led to a discussion to things that were discussed in the past 10, 11 years ago when we had a master facilities committee and really looked at what would be the long-term goals of the district. We have buildings that are, at least 3 of our buildings are older. there certainly is a need to do some of these upgrades, not only for the energy efficiency, which will gain some cost back to the district, but also failure. And we want to make sure that our buildings are warm, safe, and dry for our students and our staff. Along with that, there were also discussions about what the district might do for expansion if enrollment increased, looking at a performance space that could be shared between Lintown Elementary School and the middle school. And of course, with the high school, the expansion of our athletic fields. We currently have our soccer field, we have a baseball field that will be dedicated actually later on in March. And what is our plan really to have that high school space and varsity level playing space for our students. So it brings us to a point where we really need to think about long-term to give the district direction to help us also prioritize with how we're operating and how we're planning for this. Where does the board want us to go? And along with that, we do need to consider what the funding would be. What's the outer limits that we want to go? What are those inner limits? Because that certainly has an effect on our day-to-day operations. So the administration is really looking for that direction from the board. It's not something that we've revisited as a board for quite some time, but it's certainly time right now with this HVAC project and 2 active proposals for us to know what those priorities will be.
Well, I'll speak first. I can't tell you how many times I've been asked, when are we going to get our own football field? And I know that's a big ticket item. However, I think if we work with our outside groups, such as the Alumni Association, who has a database of all the alumni, most of the alumni they've come in contact with through their class representatives, put out a plea to have a fund for football field. And I think, reach out within the community, and rather than have us foot the whole bill, I think there's going to be some interest in that direction. As far as the needs of the buildings, we've done a lot of upgrading in our buildings. And I know air conditioning was a big concern of our strategic plan. So that would probably be my second choice. But I just wanted to give that, because I have gotten a lot of requests to get our own football field. And especially with COVID, we are at other districts' mercy now to use their fields for our home games. So I think that's definitely an avenue, but I think we could also check into the HVAC for the buildings and prioritize which building would be in more of a need and phase it in. I'd be inclined to go that way.
I'll just say I have concerns about any major expenditures given the budget deficit we're looking at now in the preliminary budget. I understand that it's only a preliminary budget. I understand that John Fairchild is a wizard, and we're likely to see that number shrink. But with, again, to go back to the point that I made earlier, with well over $1 million going to fund cyber school education and the ongoing effects of the pandemic, I'm very uncomfortable with major expenditures at this time. The HVAC makes some sense to me because it also involves making the buildings safer. So if we can find a way to afford that, that would be my priority. But I'm again, just concerned about any major spending.
I agree with Virginia entirely. And maybe for people who haven't been at every board meeting, because I know that some of these do get viewed, right? The reason that we can't pay for an HVAC upgrade with energy savings is because we've never paid for air conditioning before. If we had really, really old air conditioners and we were just throwing away a ton of money on electricity for them, the savings we would gain by putting in new efficient air conditioners would make sense. But we've never spent that utility money before. And so that's why we just can't make it up with the savings. The way people might have seen in the news, other places do it. So being entirely new with air conditioning in 3 of our 4 buildings it's going to be a capital outlay. So I would be more in favor of a conservative phased approach, but then you're telling some kids and staff, you get to be cool this year, and everyone else still has to suffer the heat. And that's going to be hard with a, I think, August 16th or 19th start when it could be still very warm.
If I could add, part of what makes this discussion helpful for administration, and to Mary's point about looking for outside sourcing for funding, whether it be the Alumni Association or the Green Dragon Foundation, if I'm able to communicate what our district's priorities are, and it may not be something we look to do immediately next year because of certainly some of the residual uncertainty and impact on the funding, at least these ideas are, those outside funding sources would look for those ideas to be the will of the board. It's very difficult to go out and ask for donations or fundraise for something if it's unsure as to whether or not that project would ever happen. And another question that may come up too is whether or not that would be some sort of match funding with the school district, or that project would only happen if it's completely funded from an outside source and not from our operating budget or our capital budget.
One thing that would help immensely with, we have to make the capital outlay, but we're going to have future operating costs. And if we have to take on more debt, that's a piece of our annual budget, is if we could generate more of our own electricity. So I see potentially more solar on the high school or solar elsewhere as a way to do that. And I think that might be something that people are interested in supporting, renewable energy.
I guess I'm a little concerned about going, we both the soccer field through a lot of the same families were fundraised for the soccer field via NU, and as well as the baseball field with the Green Dragon Foundation. So I just think about, we continue to say, oh, the Green Dragon Foundation will come through, and they do come through. They really do, but a football stadium that's a big ticket item when we have physical plant needs for, sort of health and safety, which is what HVAC is. So that's my only concern there.
Well, I'm not talking right away. I'm talking.
No, I know, Mary. I'm sorry. I don't mean to imply that you were.
No, I'm thinking down the road. I mean, we're going to have to settle for using other districts' fields for several years, but start the fund someplace. It's got to start. I mean, there's nothing set aside now saying, alumni, would you want to donate so much money for the football field and just earmark it for that? That's what I'm saying. Start, just, set that as a goal, maybe to start some kind of a funding for that field. That's all I'm saying,
One thing also we might consider is, when do we think we will have to resurface the track? Because would we make that investment? And that's I actually don't know. I don't know if Delbert's on and he could give us a timeline for how much more life we might get out of the track there behind at Pauling.
John, are you able to pull up our capital projects? Do you have that at your fingertips?
Let me see if I can find that. I do know that the track at Pauling was recently resurfaced, and there were some patches and stuff that were placed on there. So I think we should be good with the track at Pauling for a while. Let me see if I can find the capital projects estimates.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look exactly when the track was resurfaced, but it was pretty recent before I got here, but still pretty recent. So I think we have some life out of it. I'd have to go back and check and update you guys as to how much life we have.
I would just like to add, after attending all of the ad hoc committee meetings that we had, I completely agree with Virginia that this isn't the year for major outlays just because of all the unknowns. And we do have to come up with a priority list to provide the administration. But you should keep in mind, for those of you that weren't part of those presentations and discussions and things, that there is a date out there that's unknown, that some of our HVAC systems, one of these days, and we don't know if it's you know, this year, next year, 5 years from now, we're going to get a phone call that says it's no longer, it's not working and we can't fix it. At which point we're going to spend the money whether we want to or whether we have it or not. So that's a piece of the equation that we have to keep in the conversation in the back of our minds.
That's what I was going to add, Corey, is that being on the committee was very eye-opening of, and I don't want to say dire because that makes it sound like it's going to happen tomorrow, but you know, a couple of our buildings are literally on their last leg with some of the equipment. And it was also eye-opening to know that even if we wanted to update some things, for example, at the middle school, there's a lot of things that need to go into that before we ever can do an update. So I would like to see, you know, us revisit the old facilities, work the master facilities plan to see where we're at on that, first of all, so we don't have to redo the work that was already done. That things that we can draw from that plan to use going forward would be great. And then second, to kind of brainstorm, are there things that we can do, maybe not this year, but at the same time in the imminent future, to help alleviate some of those, like Corey just said, midnight phone calls of like, we have to do this. So tentatively plan ahead of, you know, and the middle school seems to be, correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron or Corey, but kind of one of the most eminent buildings to look like it's going to need electrical work as well as, you know, the HVAC stuff. Or do we look at Kelly that might be an easier fix to get more kids in, you know, acclimation for climate, maybe not quite as expensive and easier to do. But I think that we need to really sit down and have a plan in place, either off of the old master facilities plan or a revamp of it.
I can say that Mr. Gallegos, myself, and the maintenance team, we will not let it get to the point where we have those midnight phone calls, as Mr. Heath refers to. Our goal is to avoid those. So we will be bringing to you small repairs, so a few upgrades here and there where where our maintenance team determines that our investment would be best. Basically to keep things going, keep things plugging along so our students and staff are at least comfortable. And then, as Dr. Unzicker-Fisero said, hopefully the board can look at the master facilities plan, give us the direction that you want us to go, and then we can keep moving forward with those plans for upgrades and improvements.
I wasn't trying to imply or denigrate your skills there, John. I was just trying to.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, don't worry, Mr. Heath. Nobody will be left out in the cold. Absolutely not.
Yeah, you know, when I heard Delbert tell stories about how we literally have to make our own repair parts from scrap metal and other parts, I mean, that tells me that things are getting old.
Any other board members? Anything else? I think we, you know, for the most part, have a fairly good consensus on the board. You know, lots of ideas thrown out, and you know, I would say that we definitely have given the administration some direction here. But I don't want to skip over anybody. So any board members who haven't said anything, does anybody else have anything that they'd like to add?
I concur with the sentiment expressed by Dr. Zimmerman and then supported by many board members.
Jordan, I agree too with Dr. Zimmerman, but I think maybe not in the real near future, but so we can tear this apart, I think it might be a good idea to have some kind of retreat or a work session to really dive into it and tie it in with our finances, what we can, what we can't afford, and start not from scratch, but project it out 5, 6, 7 years, what we want to phase in, no matter what it be HVAC, sports complexes, you know, that kind of thing. But I don't think we can do it in some board meetings. We have too much other things to do during a board meeting. But I think a board retreat or a work session, I think we're at the point now where we really need to look at this and fine tune it for the next several boards to come. Just a thought.
I agree, and I would just say that the difficulty in making some of these decisions is obviously just the unknowns, and of course, COVID has definitely disrupted, you know, every aspect of life these days. But I'll circle back and touch on it a little bit in the board liaison reports, but the Green Dragon Foundation met earlier this week, and through some of those conversations, I had shared, even going back to last year's budget, or I guess this current year's budget when we were doing it last year, the board's direction definitely took a change when COVID really hit. You know, we changed our budget and shifted gears a little bit. So it's difficult, I think, for all of us to make some of these decisions and really give true direction, because, you know, until John's presentation earlier, until we know a little bit more health insurance rates, all of those things, you know, it's difficult for us to really make some of these decisions when we're still looking at a deficit in the budget. So I agree with you, Mary. I think these conversations need to continue to happen. Unfortunately, I think it's difficult for us to have these and really make sound decisions with so many unknowns still out there.
I would just add that at some point the budget uncertainties will resolve themselves. Certainly, we're not anticipating any additional expenses to hit as a result of COVID, but that's at this moment. Who knows what's yet to come? I mean, we didn't even think anything like the COVID pandemic would be a thing this time last year. What's helpful for us is to know which to do first in terms of the timeline. You know, we would always need to be flexible because something can always come up. So this discussion is helpful for me and Mary, I think that idea is very appropriate, a work session where we can really hammer some of those pieces out. And also it gives me the ability as the superintendent and Jordan as the board president, working with the Green Dragons and any other organizations that we can have that list of priorities and a time frame about when it's to happen. Something like a football field, which is, you know, millions of dollars, we won't raise those funds through an outside source in a year. That needs time in order to happen. But assurance that that is a commitment of the board. Along with that, planning always has to be the budgeting. It's like a household budget. You're saving up to buy a car, you're saving up for that vacation, you have the option of charging it to your credit card or just putting a couple of dollars away each month so that you can pay for that in cash. And while we're talking about numbers that are surreal, you know, as we mostly don't spend our time talking in millions of dollars with our household budgets, but it's the same kind of process. And you know, that commitment will serve the administration going forward, and also the boards going forward, that they know they're following in a path that's already laid, because I don't envy your position right now of having to try and wrangle with something like this, which is timely and important, but also making a commitment for, you know, the district for many years to come and boards for many years to come. But thank you.
All right, we will move on to the next informational item, the 2021-22 district calendar draft. Mrs. Moser? Or Dr. Palanchok, sorry, either one.
Either one. Kathy, you're muted.
Sure, I'm unmuted now.
You can take it.
Sure, absolutely. You have the draft for the coming school year, similar time frame to begin. Once again, some pieces on it that are here on your board agenda to appreciate. The idea of the staggered start for students, bringing our transitional grades in one day to really take in what's new and different about their school building they'll be attending, and giving them a best chance for a smooth start. And then the second day for the students who are returning to the same school building in the grades that they will be attending for that school year. We liked that this year, and that was a feature that our administrators wanted to see come forward in the 21-22 school calendar. There are some half days for in-service purposes. There are some clarifications of the holidays that are our 12-month employees' holidays per their labor agreements that are already in place. And so we wanted to be sure to have those clearly indicated on the calendar. And that's important. It's got the traditional features to school calendars, including some snow makeup days and in-service days. We hope it's helpful to families and our own staff to see where the testing date weeks are blocked out so that everybody knows that in their planning. And taking a look at it, we share it with you in draft form tonight. And the purpose of that is always to get more eyes looking at it and suggestions, questions, thoughts, concerns as we continue to plan.
I didn't know what the gray was, so I just add that to the key. That makes total sense for absence purposes to let them know when the testing windows are.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep.
I just had a question. I think the staggered start is a fantastic idea. I'm just wondering if that replaces the previewing days that normally happen at the end of the school year, and of course didn't happen last year because of COVID, or if there will still be previewing in addition to the staggered start.
I actually would answer that both ways, Dr. Zimmerman. I would tell you that by happen chance, when we couldn't last year, that was the rationale and the justification for putting them into this year when we had to come back late summer and do some revising of our calendar anyhow. I will also still say, as our school year this year wraps up and we find ourselves in those last several days of the school year, I would still look for some limited but important opportunities for third graders to come over and see Lintown and fifth graders to walk the sidewalk over to the middle school. But again, everything against the backdrop of pandemic and health concerns and all good practices of distancing and so forth just really does continuously make us think and rethink all pieces. So even what they might see at the end of a school year under very different circumstances might be offset by the benefit of hopefully lots of normal routine coming back into place next year, and the benefits gained of those first days affording us opportunity for focused transition.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kathy.
Yes.
We will move on to the new district website development. Dr. Palanchon.
Okay. Okay. So one of the first things that I did was interact with our website quite a bit when it came to communicating information about school reopening. And in working with the website, it gave me pause to think about what a good website can really do for the school district, the internal stakeholders, as well as the external stakeholders, prospective residents, and just the community in general, if they just want to know what's happening. We certainly want to make sure that we're promoting the vision and the mission of the district. We want to have up-to-date information for parents and timely information. I think that's critical. You know, we live in a world managed by websites anymore. You want some information, there's a website to go to. So we want to make sure that we have a process in place so that every school's page, different clubs and activities, different events that are occurring at the school can be readily accessible and accurate. We want to improve the community's access to the district as well. You know, we want to look for a place where we can move towards paperless forms, Parents can do their family trip requests. They can pay their activities fees, and anything else that prospective residents or prospective students' parents may need to access, and to be able to do that paperless and have processes in place in order to capture that workflow. And that certainly that falls under with transactions. And we always want to be highlighting our achievements. You know, we certainly do a good job of this here, but pictures and videos speak 1,000 words. And, you know, as we're sharing the successes of our students, unfortunately, some of their family members, grandparents, aunts, uncles may live someplace else, and that might be a place where that is. Social media certainly is a part of that, and it should be intertwined with what's on the website, but the website should really be the hub for the district. You can advance it, John. So what I asked Kathy Schwendinger to do for us is to take a look at other website vendors that are out there. And with her expertise, certainly of coding and software, she would be able to ask questions about the back end, the user-friendly interface for someone from the outside, but of course somebody internally that's maintaining, or multiple people that'll be maintaining it, to look for something that you know, you can't break the website. It's easy to use. You can update information, and it won't take you forever to do it. That all will lead to the website being much improved from where it is now. So these were some of the things we were looking for that are really important, but also have to have. So compatibility with PowerSchool. There's going to be any integration with our student information system, that certainly has to be there. ADA compliance, so we do have to have features on the website for people with disabilities, also translation ability for parents that speak another language. English is not their native or first language. Some of the essential tools that we need on a website, such as buttons and quick ways to jump to certain sections or certain pages. So it's not a website where you have to spend 10 minutes trying to find what you're looking for. It's very intuitive. The back-end maintenance, it sounds weird if you don't work in this all the time, but there's oftentimes a lot that the tech person has to do to set up the site so that it functions the way that we need it to with all of the other software that we may use. User-friendly, not just for us, user-friendly when it's developed for also an outside population. Always keeping in mind too that not everyone is necessarily familiar with how a school district is organized and where to find that information. For that, we really, you know, we'll be looking to our communications committee to help us identify what would be those areas, like what parents, what do you want to see first? Students, what do you want to see first? So that they don't become frustrated searching for information. And we always know there's going to be some initial and ongoing cost. Oftentimes when we're migrating our current content to any vendor that we might go with, there's some cost for that setup, all the compatibility issues that have to be worked out and resolved. So we looked at these 5 different providers, and Intrado School Messenger is actually the company that we use for our school messenger. That's our emailing system where we send out notifications by email, text, and telephone call. So they actually have a website package that integrates with the way that they already communicate. And they have a mobile app that's now in beta. And there's a couple of really positive features to what this particular website would be able to do. The next couple slides here, John, the board has these handouts in their backup as well, but it gives you a little bit of an overview. It's a much sharper looking website. You have an ability to custom build a template, or there are many ready-made templates that, you know, so we don't have to invest that money in the design. It's there. We just populate it with our colors and our content. And there's the ease of access for the user accessing the website, and then those who would be maintaining the website is far superior to some of the other ones that were reviewed. And I would just point out here other drop and drag features, some of these things where we want to move content, or we would want to have, you know, current events and a scrolling bar. All those types of things are programmed within the website software themselves. We currently have a very static website. Some of those features might be able to be built into it, but that's not how it was initially designed. So it would be a rebuild of what we have, and some features just are a little too complex for someone who doesn't have really that back-end software technology background. So, you know, this is really a website project besides potentially identifying another vendor, and the administration would recommend Entrado for this, and we're not doing this at this point yet, but as an information item for you to know that it's not just our desire to buy another website, outsource it, and then it looks just as our website does now in terms of what type of content is on there. We really want to get feedback from stakeholders in our internal community as well as external about what features they want to see, and to let this be the place where we can really celebrate the accomplishments of the students and also get parents and students and other community members the information that they really would need to know about the district. There would be a plan and, you know, certain features to individuals' job descriptions added that they would be responsible for maintaining their school's website within the district website, and also the pages, so that everything is always current and relevant, and look to expand that. And of course, partner that with the social media that's currently being used, so that people are in the know and they know what's going on. And absolutely looking at forms and looking at credit card systems. Unfortunately, even though these websites have the capability to create forms, they often don't have then that back end piece where the forms would get routed to different people for their view and signature and archive. So we are reviewing some products that are specifically designed as a form maintenance type of program, and one that we did find also has that credit card capability as well, which is always, besides convenience, it reduces you know, just cash on hand in schools that then needs to be deposited and tracked and monitored. So it's definitely a positive feature, and with, you know, just the time not spent doing some of that paperwork and clerical work, that time can be devoted to our website. So are there any questions? Okay.
I'm so happy to see this. I'm so happy for electronic forms and for modernization. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jen. Moving on to the board president's report. Started discussing the committee assignments, going down my list of board members. I took a couple days off earlier this week, so I didn't get as far as I wanted to, but I'll be circling back. I don't expect any huge changes in the committee reports, but I'm looking to bring that back to the board for approval at our next board meeting. So if I haven't talked to you yet, I will be reaching out just to make sure that there's no huge changes. So Dr. Palanchuk, I'll turn it back to you for the superintendent's report.
So on February 4th, we're going to begin our second semester this year, and we're fortunate that most of our school days have been in-person days. I want to thank the students, staff, parents for their support in making this happen. The CDC study that was released on January 26 outlines what schools have done in order to be effective in person during the pandemic. Compliance with wearing masks, social distancing, and quarantining after exposure contributed to their success, and that has also contributed to our success. While we can monitor and control what students are doing within the buildings, we can't necessarily do that in the evenings and the weekends. And we know that everybody's really weary with the masks, they're weary with the restrictions, and vaccinations, unfortunately, are going to take a little bit longer than we had initially hoped when it was first announced that they existed. But we need to keep doing what we're doing. We have to stay the course, both in school and also outside of school. And it might hopefully be for just a little while, but we really just ask everybody to continue to be vigilant, make responsible decisions, and we will continue with the same expectations for students, staff, any visitors that may come into the building, with masking, maintaining social distancing, hand hygiene, and certainly the contact tracing. Mr. Fairchild presented our preliminary budget for the 2021-22 school year, and we have some challenges ahead of us. Our team will continue to look for ways to gain efficiencies as well as bring the budget into alignment with the district's priorities. Part of this work does include determining how best to allocate the stimulus funding that we received, and over this school year, and this can actually extend into the 2023 school year. We anticipate that possibly in this next round of stimulus funding, there may be other dollars available to the district, but we want to be judicious about that, and we want to make sure that we're lining that up with what our lasting needs are and not just something that's temporary in the moment. I also want to share an email that I received from a parent. This parent, as you can imagine, sometimes when the salutation begins with the name of a teacher or staff member, that there could be some kind of concern or issue. But this parent took the time to write a very moving email about Mr. Mallory and Miss Ehrlich at the middle school. Their child was in e-school, was having a lot of problems. And both counselors really went above and beyond so far as to visit the student at home to check in on her and have some conversation with her. And I think that shows that, while it may not always seem that way with our e-school students, that they're not as connected with the school, they certainly are on the minds of our teachers and our staff. And they look forward to embracing them back into the in-person fold when they feel ready and they're comfortable to do so. And we certainly have the patience for that. But, I want to, certainly commend Mr. Mallory and Ms. Ehrlich on their professionalism and really just going above and beyond, and just share that very positive sentiment with you. And finally, I want to thank the board for your leadership in the community and the school district. There are many decisions in the future, and your thoroughness, due diligence, and willingness to take on these challenges gives us the ability to ensure that our students will have the best possible education and experience in school. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We'll move on to board liaison and committee reports. Anybody have anything to share?
So the IU met last
the Green
week.
Dragon Foundation. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. The IU met last week, but I thought they were going to send over the budget. So I'll just wait until the next meeting to walk through that with everybody, if that's okay with you all.
I had mentioned previously that the Green Dragon Foundation met this past week. Some of the obstacles in any fundraising organization, of course, again, just the times that we're in right now. We did have a fairly lengthy conversation in a breakout group where, again, I had shared that the district's priorities and goals are not necessarily goals, but priorities right now may or may not be shifting. They did last year, and so we're trying to work through that. One of the things that was brought up during that meeting was just kind of the glamorous projects. HVAC is one of those projects. I think any homeowner can relate to this. A new roof, the sewer line, things like that are not on. A football field might be a little bit more glamorous, but again, they want to align their fundraising with the district priorities. So it is very beneficial, the conversation that we had tonight, and just working through some of the district priorities, because that definitely helps some of these other organizations. So a lot of good conversations going on. It was a very good board meeting, and I think a lot of healthy discussion. Any other committee reports? All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, sorry. My AirPod was about to die. Any items of the consent agenda that anybody would like to have removed and voted upon separately? Hearing.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Pretty sure Jordan wants to do a voice vote here.
Yeah.
Here's Jordan.
Corey, you take over now.
There you go.
Paula, could you give us a voice vote, please?
Sure. Mrs. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Fetzer? Mr. Heath?
Yes.
Dr. Jablonski?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Dr. Unsiga Frisero?
Yes.
Dr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Browse?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Since Jordan still seems to be frozen, we'll move on to director's comments. Anybody wants to chime in, feel free.
I just wanted to thank Dr. Pollenchak and the administration for the library books. It's such a pleasure to know that that our names will be on books in the library for kids to read for years to come. And I think it's exciting that there were also some other reading-oriented tidbits in the principal's reports. It's exciting news about the teacher who is one of the few chosen to be involved with the EPIC program. And I'm so pleased that the reading for Black History Month is still going to be able to happen even in these times. And I also wanted to just take a second to just give a shout out to the music teachers who already got a little bit of love tonight, but just through my own children, those are the teachers I've had the most contact with, and it's really hard for them to do their jobs, and they're doing such a good job. And I've just been so impressed by the innovations and the patience and just their ability to help the kids continue to make music and do it safely and with enthusiasm. So a thank you to them.
Any others? All right. John, citizens comment to board on any non-agenda items. Is there anything out there?
We're taking a look here. Nope, we do not have any comments to the board on non-agenda items.
Very well. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
We have a motion and a second. So with that, we'll adjourn the meeting. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Night.
Good night.
Oh, that was.
Oh, really quickly, it was policy 433.
Okay, now you